We're going to talk about emotions and mood and wave patterns. So I have an image here, which I'll do a screen share. And this is now I did kind of take this from another source. I think this probably showed up in Ra's original material in the first place. So this is, if you can see, this is all about, let me just remove these apps here. Here we go. The emotional waves. Let me move my face. I don't know if you'll see it there. Okay. So the frequencies of the emotional wave. Now, this is information I've taken from sources with regards to emotional authority and some more official sources. Let's talk about the emotional waves. So now this is just a visual representation, definitely going into the experience, both for mine and as well other lives with other people and their authorities. So the 59.6, which is the channel, they call it a channel of mating. It's a channel that goes from the sacral to the emotional solar plexus. It is considered the source wave, but being a tribal wave, it is the less I would say variable, I guess, if you want, or doesn't have quite the extreme highs and lows as other waves. And what's interesting is, as you can see, this source wave is depicted kind of almost like this mild stair step process, but I don't know, like coming down or what's the rest of it. So, but I'm just going according to the graphic here. Tribal waves. So, tribal outside of the 59.6. So we're talking about the 3740, which is the channel from the emotional solar plexus to the will center. And the channel 1949, the channel of synthesis, that goes from the root to the emotional solar plexus. It has a bit more of this undulate wave, right? And then it kind of peaks a bit and goes down and week, up and down, up and down, up and down. Now, I will definitely talk about my experience, and let me just get to my chart over here. Now, as you can see, I have the source wave, the 59.6, and I have the 3740. And I have two waves. So I will absolutely be talking about that in a couple of minutes. The first thing I wanted to talk about was this theme about waiting for clarity. And so, as I mentioned a little bit earlier, I at least sleep on it, right? Give myself a night just to remove that initial like energy, enthusiasm, excitement that surrounds the initial decision. And I've done this now over practice. At first, it was like, well, I don't know, right? Seems so exciting. And it's especially important for me because here's another reason why. I have completely open root, right? And completely open head, pressure sandwich, right? Commit, do it, do it. Ah! So I like to get out of that energy and space. And I have realized what a gift it is to give myself that time because I'm like, wow, I see things really differently, even after just like 24 hours. I being a business owner, like I contemplate 1,001 programs and trainings and all this stuff, right? And all of them are exciting and all of, and they all, often have these like time pressures, deadlines, sign up now, whatever, right? And so, yes, sometimes it can seem like, there's a deadline, right? You got to make up your mind by the deadline. Well, first of all, what I've noticed in this field is that a lot of these programs and trainings like come back around, right? They become available again and again and again. Many of them are just available all the time. Maybe there was a price discount, right? So that removes a lot of the pressure for me. So I've now become a little bit more educated about some of the areas where I tend to be a little bit more vulnerable, or at least I may have this tendency to kind of jump into something before I have clarity. So I've become a lot wiser about that. And that just came with time and experience and being very aware of this process of waiting for clarity. This is the way I like to describe the moment from a decision to like a decision presenting itself, I should say, like an opportunity, I guess, if you want to contemplate, to like an actual decision clarity. The opportunity shows up, boom, right? Okay, hey, there's this possibility. So I'm like, ooh. And I have a sacral too. So this is probably a really good time to talk about my sacral as well. So My sacral is not my authority, but my sacral is vocal and it responds. So let's say, because I am a sucker for, like I said, good training programs and coaching programs and all that, but I just don't jump into them the way I used to. So let's say this thing comes up and I'm like, initially my sacral goes, ooh. So, okay, this is something I'm paying attention to. Now, this is something, now I call it just instinctively, I'm going to emo this, right? I'm going to contemplate and sort of chew on this to see whether or not this is something that will be a yes. So the first thing, my sacral is going, ooh, this is exciting. And then I notice the feeling from my root is there's a bit of this nervous excitement. So there's this dance and play going on, right? Your design's always working all across the board at the same time, all the time. So um, I noticed this. And for me now, through practice, I have been able to distinguish between the excitement of a possibility and the nervous excitement. It almost feels like a higher pitched excitement, if that makes any more sense, to the calm, sort of almost baritone of the clarity of a yes or a no. That's how I can now delineate between a, what I'll call a false positive yes, right? This nervous excitement to yes, right? This is it. This is good. This is what I want to do. This is what I want to jump into. This is where I want to commit my time, my energy, my money, right? Like that is the difference in a sensation for me between this nervous excitement, which I know is not a clear yes, and this, oh, yes. So that's number one. I like to compare it to, imagine every decision is a dust cloud. So suddenly you're standing in the middle and you cannot see around yourself, right? There's dust swirling all around you and you cannot see the horizon, you can't see anything around you. You just wait until the clarity comes, right? And clarity comes over time. So now you're starting to see a few details. You might see a building here, a building there, or whatever. And then eventually you can see the horizon. And now you know which way is the direction you want to head in, and you go. But until then, you're really just groping in the dark with your eyes closed, right? So that's kind of how I like to define, like, sort of the experience of emotional authority. And I have now realized the value of not trying to force a decision during the dust cloud, because I can't see the truth. I can't see what's in front of me, right? I don't have all the details. I can't see the streets and the street signs and the buildings and the directions and so on and so forth. So I have come to value the time for clarity, because it's almost like the truth isn't always clear in the moment, right? You could be so excited about saying yes to something that shows up that you forget, oh my gosh, I already have this going on. I forgot I committed to this. Oh my gosh, now I got that crap going on, right? So this is why time for clarity is so valuable. And if people are pressuring you to make a decision before you are ready, first of all, that's not a good sign, right? That should be like your little spidey sense going off, like, oh, wait a second, especially if you don't like that pressure, right? And you could just say, I'm sorry, there was a few things I need to consider before committing to this or not, right? I will let you know when I have clarity on this, or I will let you know when I've had a chance to catch up and check in on all my things, right? Whatever, that's fine. You know, you can tell them what you want, but you've got your own process. And that has just become my thing. So, you know, on paper, I have just simply passed up what may be good opportunities, but they just weren't a yes. And I have had too much experience in my life saying yes to things because, hey, you say yes first and you make it right later, right? And all those cliches. And I have had to backtrack. I have been exhausted. I have been frustrated. I have, you know, trying to push things and make things right. And it is just like, forget it. I don't do that anymore. I mean, well, I might fall into the trap once in a while, right? We're all kind of on this journey of experimentation. However, I have been able to seriously reduce and minimize the PETA factor of making a quick decision and realizing later that I regretted it. Because if it's a yes, it'll be a yes. And I have had moments where I kind of was like, "Eh." And then after time, when I got clarity, I'm like, oh my gosh, I didn't see that for the opportunity was. Of course, that makes so much sense. Like, that's yes. That's like such an easy yes now. But it wasn't when the decision was first presented. Most typically for me, though, decisions can seem exciting in the moment. So they're a potential yes. And then later they become a no. That's probably more common for me as a pattern. One of the things I want to comment on is having two waves. So people talk about, okay, what does it feel like? Like, how do you feel your wave? Now, perhaps this is because I have two waves, and there's, as you noticed with that earlier graph with all the different patterns, there was no actual timeline to the waves. I think it's a very individual thing. So I have no idea, like that source wave, the step, and the tribal wave, the squiggly ups and downs. I don't know what time frame that is. I have no idea. And maybe I'm going to be very excited to talk to people with single waves who can speak individually to, that one channel, right? And that one wave. But I can tell you, for me, I don't feel a wave, right? And probably that's length of time. Probably that's because I've got two things happening at the same time, maybe with their own rhythms and patterns. I don't feel a wave. What I can do, though, which is constructive for anybody who is new on their journey and wants to dial in to, their emotional wave, is have a little journal, and at least once a day, maybe at the same time of day, maybe when you wake up or something. Waking up, I find, is interesting because you're kind of fresh, right? And rate on a scale of 1 to 10 how you feel in that moment. Maybe at the beginning of your journey, try, different times a day. Just 1 to 10. How am I feeling? Feeling good, right? I don't know, feeling kind of, right? I don't know, kind of wake up a little stressed, a little whatever. So, if you're waking up feeling good, maybe you feel like an 8. Yeah, things are cool. Can let things roll off my back and slide and right? And, if you're kind of feeling neutral, neither up, neither down, maybe you're a 5. And, if you're kind of waking up on the wrong side of the bed and feeling crabby, maybe you're a 2. And just kind of see whether or not there's a pattern. But for me, like, I just dial in the moment when I'm interested is like how I feel. And how I feel is personal to me. So I know some of the comments or the questions were all like, how do you deal with like people like, it's personal to me, right? Skylar, I'm mostly meh. Okay, well, that's all right. You're probably in a fairly neutral space, which is good, because still in a neutral space and in a positive space, you would have some, like, what I would call elasticity, right? You still have some tolerance for weird shit happening outside of you. And so, you're like, yeah, whatever, that can happen. Outside external events, external circumstances can absolutely affect my mood, right? As probably anybody, but like, does it affect my wave? Maybe. I mean, as a generator type, as a manifesting generator, I can go from wee to what the fuck in, 0.2 seconds flat, as soon as something comes up. And so, I get grouchy and grumpy and stuff. I mean, does it affect my wave? Eh. But I can tell you, being in that headspace doesn't make things, doesn't give me a lot of clarity very easily or very quickly on anything, except maybe what I'm frustrated about. Use the experiment, right? Kind of separate yourself and just be like, I'm going to observe myself as a scientific experiment, right? As a science project. And how do I feel when this happens? How do I feel when this comes up? Especially if it's a decision you might be interested in, but maybe the stakes in the end are not that high. Like, it probably wouldn't be the biggest deal at the end of the day if you said no. And yes, if I don't have full clarity, like if I still am finding in that nervous excitement, or let's say, for example, we're talking about that big coaching program, right? It was $2,000, and I got to decide by noon today to sign up, whatever. If I'm still feeling in a bit of that nervous energy, it's a no, because it's not a yes. That's why it's a no. And so there are three possible answers generally with, authority, especially like I'm thinking sacral here, but like yes, no, and I don't know, or not now, right? Like I'm unsure. So to me, if anything is other than a yes, then it is a no.